while we are coming to the end of the year 2024, maybe we'll start experience first mainstream games which will have nothing to do with buying 30,000 worth NFTs.
Kind of similar, I guess. We are looking for games that are games first now, which is the theme, and then the tokenomics, etc., that would come into the picture. Interesting. Let's see how it pans out. We are all rooting for good games to come out. And again, good games take a little while to be built. So Axie 2021, it's going to be a couple of years for that. Let's talk a little about the challenges. And I'm not talking about the regulatory challenges or the user behavior challenge. I'm talking about purely infrastructure challenges that you guys see as a roadblock for a large-scale adoption, both for developers as well as for users. What are your thoughts on that?
I can jump in. I think I would say two main things specifically is that when developers build games, they're building an environment in which the players need to stay into the environment. So I think one of the biggest roadblocks was essentially prompting players to leave the game experience. That's creating a wallet outside of the game. It's being too much specific on DeFi components that they had to know rather than the game itself. And that's where the switch sort of happened, where we're building everything for inside the game experience because that's what the players want to do. They want to play that fun game experience. So wallets integration, on-chain player integration, everything, trading, marketplaces, asset creation, UGC, it's happening in the game. And that's where developers are getting excited because they understand that they can now give out a full experience, like a game experience to their user base. The other part is being mobile first. I think there was a big issue in the very beginning where games weren't mobile first. Well, if you're going to build for an emerging market, if you want to build for mass adoption, it needs to be mobile. Most of this world don't access PC games or console games. So if you're building something in a niche market, but talking about decentralization, you're actually creating these little mini walled gardens and kind of creating something that maybe is not the true vision of Web3. So I think now with a lot more developers, a lot of products being created, as Sébastien said, they're now creating a mobile version of Sandbox. The realization is if you don't build for the mass adoption won't come. So I think that's been, kind of an interesting part.
Are there any technical roadblocks that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's because it's an infrastructure conversation. Let's talk a little bit more about them as well. Do you think there are any problems in the industry fundamentally that need to be solved in terms of scalability, security, or anything else?
Well, I'll pass that to you. Actually, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that there's multiple ways of looking at this, right? And I think it's really important to really speak to what the three of you are working on as well, because I think simplifying technological hurdles is something this era of development is going to focus on. And I think especially for all of us here on stage, Aptos as a blockchain is designed to help people build scalable games. And the technology built by all of you here are helping game developers simplify that process. It's a lot like asking a game designer to all of a sudden learn everything about blockchain is like asking a web designer to then design a game. It's three completely different core competencies, much like how you wouldn't ask a game designer to design a website, right? So I think that the work that all of us here on stage are doing can help simplify that and remove some of those technological barriers.
Yes, so I think our big challenge as the infrastructure providers is to understand the situation of the mainstream gamer. So who they are, and they are mostly non-crypto investors. So they don't have their MetaMasks, they are not investing in crypto, they don't want to basically hold Ethereum, Polygon, or any other chain native token to pay for transaction fees. They would like to just enjoy the gaming experience. So I believe that our goal, and this is what we do in GameSwift, is to create the environment where non-crypto gamers will able to join any Web3 game with their Steam account, with their Facebook or Gmail account. What is happening underneath is that their crypto wallet is automatically created and it processes everything which is happening on chain. So they don't need to be crypto investors. They don't need to pay transaction fees or invest in Ethereum in advance to pay for those fees. They just need to sign up. The whole magic is happening in the background. And I think it is very important, especially due to the fact that there is kind of the schisma around NFTs. There is a big backlash from traditional gamers. I believe that after the recent bull market, NFTs has this stereotype of the scam, of the cash grab. So whenever gamers hear that some NFTs will be implemented in the game, they are a little bit afraid. And this is exactly why we need to process this technology underneath, because players playing games on Steam, they don't think whether those games are based on AWS or some different cloud. They just want to play those games. And in my opinion, NFT could, any other technology, could be used for not necessarily good reasons. It could be used for scam. But from the perspective of technology, it is the pure solution for facilitating the games and a very fair in-game economy. So once we find the way to adapt NFTs into the Web3 gaming, then we can make it.
Yeah, to add actually to what Pan was saying, is I think part of the infrastructure is important, but is equally the language. So what we're essentially doing a lot is changing the language. We're not necessarily calling, things NFTs. We're calling them digital assets. We're calling them limited edition collectibles on chain. So I think one of the things that we're doing with developers is we want to understand the language they want to use it, and that's the language we're bringing not only to them and how they're building, but it's also what they're building, they're essentially bringing to their user base, their players, and the players are much more interested by that new language rather than the language that has been perceived a little negatively. So it's also even the way we're just interacting with the developers and players.
Fair point. I was just about to jump into that as well. Coming into Web3 or crypto or blockchain, for a game developer, it's kind of hard because you are introduced to so many of these new terms like ZK, different languages like Solidity, Rust, Move. So how does a developer, how does a developer figure it out? How do they navigate? Is there a leading paths that they can follow in order to figure it out? First of all, with that, let's start with that.
Yeah, I could maybe jump in because I was actually having this conversation with them in the lounge room. For developers, and the feedback we're getting from a lot of developers is that they look at L1's, L2's blockchain as an extension of their publishing strategy. That's how they're seeing it. So for them, they want to be on as many L1s and L2s as any other publisher, but they know that there's always going to be that really good one, right? So essentially for us at READYgg, it's about building and working with the best partners, thus Aptos being one of them, making ourselves chain agnostic and cross-chain, because I think for developers, it's really important for them to never build in a walled garden. It's so imperative for them that that be the case, that they have the freedom of their IP, that they have the freedom to move their IP, but essentially they're also coming to us to get recommendations as to how to extend that publishing strategy, so which blockchains essentially they should be developing on. From our case, we made sure to be multi-language, multi-platform, EVM, outside EVM, on purpose because we want developers to build. So that was a technical, logical feat we had to undertake so that it'd be so much more easy for developers and for players as well. Yes.
Yeah, if I may just add on to that, like while it's also on us to simplify what these complex blockchain and Web3 terminologies are, it's also on us to learn the language of gamers. So I think for any prospective Web3 developer here that wants to work on gaming, I would really learn the language of gaming and language of game development, right? It's like, what are the same terminologies that we feel so comfortable saying, such as ZK rollups and EVM or non-EVM, right? How can you develop that competency with the language game developers speak? So that's my biggest advice, I think, on this is, I think once we realize that and we can meet in the middle, that's when these walls get torn down.
Yes, so my experience of cooperation with Web3 gaming developers is that some of them follow the strategy which you mentioned, that they want to have multi-chain experience, they want to have exposure on as many blockchains as they treat them as the publisher side. But at the same time, some of them are a little bit afraid of like building on some other blockchain, as they are, especially they are the big gaming studios who don't want to take the risk that, for example, if they build on Ethereum or on Binance Smart Chain and CZ will be sentenced to the jail, then they might be in trouble. So that's why some games prefer to have their own DApp-specific chains, and that's what we facilitate as well. So what we do, we provide them with the possibility of having their own chain, which is tailored for their game. They are going to be provided with it within 48 hours. We do take care of the security, as we created a whole army of nodes, validators securing this network. And we do also limit the barrier of entry, because building your own DApp-specific chain, even if it's EVM compatible, it's still connected with some kind of barrier of entry. You need to adjust chain ID, RPC network. So basically what we do is we are allowing mainstream users, mainstream gamers, to enter those chains with their Google, Facebook, or some other supported social medias. So thanks to this, we are facilitating the business case where those gaming studios can maximize their revenue because they have their own chain. All the fees are incurred in their own currency. We limit and reduce the time of the development because it's only 48 hours. They don't need to make this blockchain for themselves. We are also maximizing the speculation value of their token, because if your token is not only in-game utility but also on-chain utility, it is like maximizing the speculation for the investors. And finally, we are trying to make it happen in the environment which could be adapted by mainstream gamers.
Great, fascinating. But coming back to Vinayak, because you're working on Move and Aptos is a L1 layer blockchain, just want to dig a little bit deeper on that. Do you face such scrutiny from developers that, hey, this is a new platform that we have to get onboarded to? How do you navigate through that? And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think much like any new technology, there's always going to be a learning curve. But one thing that I'm very proud of is Aptos has built a technology that's both dynamic and scalable, but also approachable to the average developer that wants to learn. And in addition to that, we want to get to a point where a developer doesn't need to know anything about the complexities of blockchain and Web3. We want to enable them just to make games. And that's something that I'm really proud of that we built both internally with how the Move programming language is designed, but also by partnering with partners in the ecosystem that can help with game development and help mitigate that process and remove those complexities. So I think it's something that we continue to work on, but I do take a lot of pride in what the team has done so far in that.
Great.
I wanted to just add to what Vinayak was saying. I think one of the things that we're seeing so much is that there's so much collaboration between so many of our projects, because we know together we can really like super serve the developer community. So I think what's been amazing in the last few months especially is that there's so much more collaboration in coming up with these packages or opportunities or solutions in which developers can come to and be like, hey, you know, come to READYgg, Aptos, we're going to be able to give you everything you need to launch and build, for example. So just wanted to add to that. Because it's
that's the ethos of Web3 at the end, right? We all want the community and the ecosystem to grow. We're not fighting among ourselves. The idea is to actually grow the ecosystem.
And so that in itself, I think, is very attractive to the developer community, because that's how they are.
Exactly. Fair point. Fair point. Pan, I just wanted to pick your brains on, you've been doing some working with some clients which are like big publishers out of Europe, which are publicly listed companies. Do you find any roadblocks in navigating the deals? What are their concerns? How do they look at Web3? Is the perception changing? What's going on?
Yes, so I believe that we are very well connected in the European gaming hub. Poland, for example, is the country where is the biggest number of the gaming studios registered on national exchange. So there is a huge developers activity like CD Projekt Red from Cyberpunk and Witcher. There is a Playway, which is the biggest gaming publisher of the gaming simulators in the world. They control more than 100 subsidiary gaming studios. So what we experience is they are trying to explore the Web3 environment, especially as they see the potential of maximizing their revenue by that. And so far, we onboarded Playway, so the biggest gaming simulator producer in the world, to the Web3, and we are very proud of that, because we need to understand also the situation of the big gaming companies. I spoke, for example, with Sony. Sony is, in terms of the revenue generated, the biggest in the world. And what they are afraid of is some kind of the bad PR, some backlash from the community of gamers. They even make the survey on the PlayStation Store asking gamers, what kind of NFT award do you want to receive for free in our games? And the gamers didn't want to get those NFTs even for free. They were also started hating them for doing that. So my point of view is that those biggest gaming studios, the tier 1, are waiting for the tier 2 to pave the way forward to take this criticism on them. And this is why we are still basing on the indie-based gaming studios, like tier 2, tier 3. And that's why I'm a really big fan of Playway, because they are having the user base of 100 million people. That's a very huge company. And they are risking a lot, but we are trying to facilitate this process for them. They are building their own DApp-specific chain using GameSwift modular blockchain. So what do? Is we are addressing their concerns that they are not building on some other chain. They have full control over their infrastructure, and at the same time they can onboard those gamers in a seamless way. I think that was their biggest concern. They didn't want their gamers to basically have MetaMask, to have Ethereum on the wallet. They wanted them to be able to easily sign in and interact with their games. And that's what we do, and I cannot wait basically for Playway to go live.
Great. Jumping onto you, Vinayak, Aptos is really deep in Korea, and you're working with a lot of big publishers in Korea as well. Any other insights that you have, or anything to add on top of what Pam added?
Yeah, obviously we've done a lot of partnerships with some amazing game developers in the Korean market, and I think we want to take some of the learnings that we've had from there and extrapolate it across other markets as well. And I think specific to India, we see such an amazing opportunity here. The community is so vibrant, so willing to learn and jump into gaming directly in a way that you don't really find in other markets to the same extent. The stat gets tossed around a lot, Brett. There's over 3 billion gamers in the world, right? Of which 500 million gamers are here in India, right? And so many people here have access to mobile phones and play games regularly. But for all of you as builders, right, I think we have a very similar resonance where not only do the games that you make, not only will they touch the 500 million people here in India that are gamers, they're going to touch the entire world. They're going to hit so many other people beyond just the scope of your own regional boundaries. And that's the power of gaming, and that's why I think Aptos is so connected with not just gaming, but gaming here in India, because we see this incredible user base, but also this incredible developer base, which has been reflected in what I've seen at this conference so far with so many people here.
Do you want to also tell about how you're accelerating the development on the chain and how people can get in touch, etc.?
Totally, yeah. So we have multiple ways to get in touch with us. You can find our information on the website. And so long as I'm here as well, please come find us. And we are looking to grow actively in India. We have an actually head of India here with us in Bangalore as well, a guy named Naresh, who's been incredible and helped us put this event together. But we're figuring out what the best way to scale our support is. But right now, please come find us while we're here. Happy to chat.
Christina, from the conversation that I had behind stage, you're really big in mass adoption, and that's your kind of go-to thing. And India is like a really big place, but there are a bunch of other tools that game developers use like Photon, like GameSparks, et cetera, what are you bringing to the table which is actually facilitating the mass adoption?
Yeah. You mentioned Photon and all of those essential projects that helped so many indie developers in Web2 actually go out and be able to build games. Like I said, game development is very different than tech development, and the worlds don't really mix in the sense that it's so difficult to build already in the two brackets. So I think what our vision was with READYgg is let's build everything that developers need so they can just concentrate on building really good games. And part of that is to be incredibly inclusive in who can actually build in Web3, which in my opinion should just be everyone who does. So in the way that we went out to build was the original first release was really made for mid-core game studios. But now what we're essentially building is a turnkey SDK that just allows anyone, a team of one developer, to now build games and essentially launch games in Web3 really easily. Doesn't matter if you're building on Unity, doesn't matter if you're building on Godot, doesn't matter if you're building on Unreal, your games deserve to be in Web3, and we're going to give you the outlet to do that. I truly believe that the next few Web3 hits will come from the emerging markets, especially India and MENA regions. We're seeing so much interest, so much innovation. So I think for me, what's exciting, especially also just adding to 2024, is that I really think there's going to be this huge wave of amazing developers from these emerging markets just coming on the scene with these amazing games. But all they need is to be powered to do that. So essentially, that's my goal. That's essentially the reason why READYgg was built.
I mean, that's really amazing. We have a few minutes left. I would like to, if you guys are okay, I'd like to open up to the audience if they have any questions for the panel. If you are building games, looking to build games, anything that pops into your mind, these guys are the right guys to honor. Not really.
Yes, that's good.
So, Parth, I mean, for you, you're here, right? You are on the grounds. You've built an amazing company. Tell us, what do you see from the gaming community here in India?
Indians are passionate gamers. They really enjoy games, but you need to understand that gaming, again, is a content category, and while we might be having Bollywood, we might be having radio, which is kind of regionalized, but in gaming, we are already exposed to the best content out there globally. So that's kind of like a thing that we need to take care of, that you need to create really good games, really high quality games, and then you'll get the love from the audience. Like we really enjoy content in India, and if you do create content which suits to our tastes, I think it's you'll reap rewards for it. The industry is the industry is starting to blossom in terms of the game developers. It's kind of nascent. Till now, categories like real money gaming have been the flag bearers in terms of revenue generation. The other games have, in terms of up-down ratio, they've not been that great. But it is changing slowly and steadily. It's changing. People earlier used to have a mindset where they didn't want to spend any money on anything if they could get it for free. But now they have, I can see people around me spending money on indie games that they don't play, just for the sake of it. Okay, this guy has put in so much effort, I really enjoy what he has done. So that's starting to change. And in terms of developers, we've been developing games for outside, working with big studios, like all the big studios, like EA, Rockstar, they have the studios there. Now, the second generation, which has worked in these studios, they're coming out of these studios and starting to make their own games. So you can see some good talent coming out in gaming in India, and probably making games first for Indian markets and then for the globe. I think that's what's happening on the ground.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys, we are all out of time. Thank you so much for being a fun audience. I hope we added some value to your day. Thank you.